Hey everyone, I'm going to sit here and share my EDS story. Sorry if the lighting's not great. I don't have ring light or anything like that, but okay, so here we go. Sorry, I am looking down at my puppy. She's right here with me. My service dog in training, hopefully. She's doing great, so I have to be more consistent with her training, but okay, so my EDS story, I guess it begins as far back as before I was born, actually. So my mom went into preterm labor with me at 27 weeks. So I was born at 27 weeks gestation, 2 pounds, 4 ounces. And I had a hole in my heart, which, connective tissues, EDS. So I had a hole in my heart and I had an ASD repair at 18 months old. From the time I was born to about 10, I'd already had 3 surgeries, lots of sickness, in and out of the hospital a lot. I just had a really bad immune system, which I think now we can go, okay, that's probably EDS related. So I started dislocating my knee, I would say at 7. I think was my first dislocation, and I continued to dislocate my knee specifically to this day. But that was like my first big, sorry, I got distracted by a cat. A new cat. I've never seen this cat outside our house, but anyway, 7, I started dislocating my knee, and then it's dislocated ever since. Now I've had more dislocations as I've gotten older, but that was like the first sign of some like connective tissue disorders. So I would have a lot of hyperextension in my knees and a lot of dislocations. I think also around the age of 8, I had my first spinal compression fracture. I fell from the monkey bars and I had a compression fracture of my spine. And so from early on, I had spinal issues, as well as I had a spinal dislocation not long after that compression fracture. It was in my lower spine, and my parents and the doctors never really assumed EDS. They just were like, oh, I don't know, she just hurts herself and she gets sick a lot. So there was no huge, this is exactly why these things are happening. And then as I get older and go through high school, like I'm still having dislocations. I'm still getting sick quite a bit. I have to pee all the time. Like my bladder is like itty bitty or overactive. And yeah, so those kind of things happen as I go through high school. I do have a concussion in high school my senior year. I was in a car accident, and that caused, I had like major whiplash, a concussion, and that started causing more issues like with my head and neck. So I started having migraines, and still to this day. So those were kind of other signs of, So those were kind of other signs of like, that doesn't quite seem like good and right for someone to just not bounce back from these things. And so I graduated high school and got married. I actually got married the day after I graduated. We were high school sweethearts and we are still married to this day, 15 years since we got married. And we got pregnant with our daughter when I was 19. So I was 20 when I had her. Now my pregnancy was huge signs of EDS. I couldn't stay hydrated. My knees were my knees, specifically my left knee, was dislocating all the time. Like even in my sleep, it was dislocating while pregnant. It was just really a rough pregnancy. It was really hard on my body. My labor was also really, really hard. The baby was positioned wrong. My hips went really bad. And that was like the first time I ended up getting sciatica, was post delivery of my daughter. And I had sciatica so bad. So I actually during labor herniated like 3 discs in my back, and I had horrible sciatica for years, and it was really, really bad. And so I didn't understand like what's going on with my back, but I was like, oh, it's just because I had a baby, And so yeah, and then kind of just had an okay few years. Like I was still having the sciatica and I was still having migraines and pain, but I was managing. And then I had my son in 2019. And his pregnancy was just as bad pretty much, but the upside about his pregnancy, I was vegan during his pregnancy, and I do feel like that contributed to a lot less inflammation in my body, and so it just felt easier. Like it wasn't great, but it felt way easier. Also, between my daughter and son, I feel like this is important to address as well, is I had many miscarriages. We had 4 miscarriages, including one set of twins and a later miscarriage. So come to find out, you know, that's going to have a lot to do with, that had a lot to do with EDS as well, as many miscarriages between them, as well as irregular periods my entire life. And my story leading up to now, we'll have a lot more about those irregular periods after I had my son. So I had my son. He was also positioned wrong. Probably has to do with EDS as well. And, you know, also had a lot of hip pain and everything with him, and kneecap dislocations. But yeah, so I had him, and I was still vegan for at least a year up to that. But after having my son, I noticed kind of like more feelings of anxiety and things like that, or at least what I thought was anxiety feeling. And then I had COVID. After COVID, my POTS symptoms went crazy. All of a sudden, my heart was just going crazy. I just couldn't, I always felt super anxious. My heart rate was racing. And then I started having syncope, and I was like, what is going on? And if you know anything about EDS and POTS, a lot of times they go hand in hand. So as I was doing research in my POTS stuff, I was realizing that there was a huge correlation between dysautonomia and EDS. And I was like, well, I don't think I have EDS. Like there's so much to EDS that I didn't realize. And so I was like goofing off because I was looking at the EDS stuff, and I was like, oh, you know, oh, I can do that. Nah, it's not a big deal. Oh, I can, you know, go over 90 degrees on my pinkies and stuff, but oh, I don't think I have EDS. Like I have stretchy skin, but oh, you know, I don't think I have EDS. But then the more I researched and the more I researched, and the worse I was feeling, because then I started having, okay, also backtrack a little bit. I had GI issues my entire life. I mean, I remember as a kid having severe GI issues, just not being able to use the restroom at all. My entire life I just thought it was normal to have GI problems, but that kind of goes into more of like realizing EDS may be my issue. So GI issues, heavy periods, heavy and long periods. Like I was only not having bleeding maybe like 4 days out of a month. Like it was really bad. Come to find out later, I had and adenomyosis, which is also common in EDS, but I didn't find that out until I had my hysterectomy. But so I had my son, COVID hit, my health just tanked bad. I was really, really struggling. So I was doing the research, and then I was like, you know, maybe it's smart to just see a geneticist. And so I did. I went and saw a geneticist here in town. It's actually a pediatric geneticist because we didn't have any adult geneticist in the city I live in. And so I went and I saw him, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I think I have EDS, but I just want to be sure. So we did the beat and scour. We did all the other criteria, and he was like, yeah, 100% you have EDS. And I'll try to put a clip of what he was, when he said it in this video, like right here. And then, so yeah, I got my EDS diagnosis, and I was like, okay, now all of this makes sense. And so once I got my EDS diagnosis, I went into my gynecologist, and I was like, you know, I'm not planning on having any more children. We had many miscarriages. I'm very happy with the 2 that I birthed, and then we also adopted my nephew. So I was like, we have 3 kids. I'm so happy with those 3 kiddos. And so and I'm miserable. I was super anemic. I was bleeding all the time. I was like, can we just take it out? And she did. She was like, yeah, let's do it. So I had my hysterectomy in 2023. And or no, it was 2020. It was April 2024, so it was last year. So I had my hysterectomy, and then that's when we found out when they did the biopsies that I had adenomyosis, which is common in EDS. Which thank the Lord I had that done, because it's made life a lot better. But still, there's no real cure for any of the stuff that I've gone through. Things have still been really hard. I also got the POTS diagnosis, which was a kind of a back and forth fight, which I can do a whole story just on POTS. But yeah, so I got my POTS diagnosis, and then my GI problems have been way worse. So yeah, that's kind of just my basic, hey, get down. Sorry, I have a kitty walking, and that's why you kind of bounced a little bit. That's kind of my basic EDS story. Yeah, my son now has an EDS diagnosis, and I'm not really happy about that, but what can you do? But yeah, now I'm just trying to figure out what next steps are, figuring out GI problems, musculoskeletal problems, like what all this looks like. And, I can't work anymore, and that's tough, and financially, and, but yeah, I'm making it, but I just wanted to give you guys a little EDS story. I know it's not really long, but, maybe if you've had some of these signs, hypermobility, dislocations, GI problems, dysautonomia, like, I hope this could help you get a diagnosis if that's something you're worried about. See a geneticist. Try to get the word out there of, hey, this may be a problem. Because it answered so much for me. Like, I was like, oh, that's why. Like, that's why I was so sick all the time. That's why this happened or this happened. So it really just helped answer a lot of questions and give me a reason why things were happening the way they were happening. But yeah, please follow, hit that subscribe button, and I hope you continue to join me on this journey.